What's up, guys? It's Uncle Freedom coming to you for Volume 2 of Fighting After SHTF. As I have mentioned before, I am currently shadow banned by the good overlords at YouTube, so like, subscribe, comment for the algorithm, yo. And if you're looking to support the channel, take a look down below. You'll see a link that says support the channel. Click that link. It'll take you to my link tree. All of the affiliates of the channel exist, so let's defeat the algorithm together. All right, so as this has grown and we have touched on lots of subjects, I've had a great time doing what I do here. But in the last video, I covered some conditions we would look at for fights post SHTF. I'll leave a link to that video over here. It was a good video because we discussed the fact that just because it went bad in a major city a state over from you does not mean your initial threat posture is going to be plate carrier full rifle, and you don't want to pre-escalate situations and tensions in your own small community as you desperately try to get ready for the impending storm. So as I promised in this one, we're going to talk more about the actual fights that take place and how we would do that. So we all have a mental image of fights, right? You know, whether that's pugilism, which is boxing. But most people's gunfights thing is somewhere in between Revolutionary War, stand in a line and shoot each other with long muskets, and John Wick. You're not John Wick, bro. The truth is that every situation is a little bit different. And the kind of fight that you're going to find yourself in, more than likely, is going to largely depend on the enemy that you find yourself facing. No matter what LARP you have in your brain, the odds of engaging in some kind of a conventional force-on-force is almost non-existent. And what's most likely to happen is going to be a defensive encounter. So we can all agree that if the balloon went up tomorrow and the world had devolved and we found ourselves in condition 1, all of a sudden, you know, a month and a half post whatever event took place as the world's devolved around us, we've now realized nobody's going to come to help us, and anybody that has come to help us has come to help us with ulterior motives of cutting up parts of America and keeping it for their own nation. Can't really hold it against them because we all did it too. But what you're probably going to face is a warfare unlike anything that you've really ever prepared for. And I think it's important that we give credence to it and actually speak to what it is. So when I say that you'll most likely face a defensive encounter, that is because any real force or brainchild or anything, because here's the thing, probably you're not going to face off against another government that's coming to do things. You're probably going to face off against gangs and warlords that have attained their power through violence of the vacuum that was left after the event took place. And those people are now raiding things like National Guard armories and ammo depots, and they have more firepower than you do, and they are just trying to rule, right? They're trying to king's rule stuff. So what you'll normally see is going to be some kind of a defensive encounter because we're not looking for a fight. We're actively trying to avoid the problem and just live our life. So the first and probably one of the most dangerous kinds of things we're going to see is a raiding party, right? Raiding party is an enemy that is attempting to overrun your community at a rapid pace just to take your resources for themselves. Really simple stuff, right? It's thievery. They're trying to bust in, and they're like, I'm going to get this stuff, and they're going to hit, they're going to run away. They're probably going to lose some people. You're going to lose some people. They're going to steal some stuff, and they're going to leave. The second most effective version of this that's terrifying is siege warfare. Siege warfare is where an enemy absolutely cuts off your community and your ability to get any supplies. That could be sabotaging the fresh water that you have to your stuff, poisoning your lake that's in your area, poisoning your deer, cattle, whatever, or blockading off your place so that you can't leave and get more supplies or go on hunts, thus effectively starving out your community. Siege warfare has been around since the Middle Ages. We did it all the time to not really we, but they did it all the time at castles and stuff. But those are the two main defensive encounters you're probably going to see first in this world. Now, I don't know. I've never been through an SHTF situation of this magnitude, but I've seen enough third world countries to tell you this is kind of how it works. So how do we actually combat these situations? Well, first, guard posts and roving patrols. You place guard posts strategically, right? We place guard posts at entering ingress and egress points of our communities. And they're really there more as an early warning system, because if you do this the right way, you have guard posts and LPOPs pushed out. Those things are obtaining and gathering information of people coming in and providing an early warning system to the community that's far behind them. And they're basically there to tell you, like, hey, dude, we're about to get wrecked, right? And the other version of this is a roving patrols. Roving patrols serve much the same fashion. They can be recon troops that are actually moving through an area to an LPOP, and they're observing what they see, and they're replaced by another roving patrol, but they're basically covering the areas in between your actual guard post on ingress and egress points to assure people aren't sneaking in areas you didn't think about. So your next setup for this, and probably one of the most effective, is an entrenched or tiered defensive system. This means setting up a progressive security system, with each level providing warning or slowing down the progress of an enemy that's facing you. So what we're looking for in this is an LPOP, right? So a listening post, observation post is exactly what it sounds like. It's out there watching and hearing what's going on and reporting that information further back so that the tiered response can get ready. We're going to be looking for natural or man-made choke points, blockading certain roads with things they can't get by, creating landslides to cut off roads so they can't get through it, rivers or streams, getting rid of bridges. We are creating barriers that slow them down or force them into a spot to make them easier to deal with. Your next one is going to be natural or man-made barriers. That is things like completely destroying a road. We used to do it with runways and stuff. We would, runway destruction munitions, or taking out a bridge to ensure that a larger force can't roll up on you. Placing burned out vehicles that are impossible to move in the roadway to prevent people from passing at all unless they pass through a very narrow spot, or maybe it's just impassable completely if it's down inside of a draw or a valley. And the next one is going to be hardened and elevated fighting positions. That means that we're using sandbags, wood, combination of digging ourselves in, and we're actually creating positions where we can rain down as much pain as we can and protect us from as much damage as we can take so that we can hold out longer, thus creating that war of attrition. Is it worth more of your people to get to where I'm at? Now, make no mistake, once the fighting starts, when they start hitting a tiered defensive system, they are immediately going to assume that whatever it is that you have is worth whatever damage they're taking, but you have to make it cost more than they're willing to pay. That's kind of how this works. The next part of this is time-consuming blockades. So that is, again, those vehicles. Maybe those vehicles, you can't move things that they can't move, but you can get things that take a lot of time and resources for them to move them. If resources are a finite thing, you can slow them down to a point where they can't leave, or slow them down to the point to get people in and start using sniper fire to rain down hate. Then you have kinetic defensive measures. That is your large quantities of tannerites and stuffed animals on the side of the road. The Taliban and ISIS did this to great effect with IEDs and VBEDs. And then another option that you have is tunnels, trench warfare, but hardened flanking positions. So if we know we have a guaranteed thing because we've created a choke point and man-made obstacles and natural barriers to force them to take one road to get to us. And then once we've taken that road, then we've moved a time-consuming blockade into that road. Because remember, we still got to be able to get out sometimes to do what we're doing. And those are coinciding with hardened, elevated defensive positions on our last tier of defense. And then we have a hardened flanking position so that once they hit an area and we start pinning them down, their options are to back up away from us or to fight back. And if we force them to fight back, you have a flanking position that now you're getting L-shaped ambush fire, right? So that is a defensive measure, right? That's how we would look at defense, kind of a tiered defense for this scenario. So what have we got to take the fight to them, right? Because we can't be defensive all the time, because eventually they will just do siege warfare and you'll have to fight, because that's what people do. So you've got a couple of options when we talk about direct things. So we're talking about a direct engagement. A direct engagement is absolutely the worst possible decision you're ever going to make, and it's going to require way more people and resources than you have any idea about. Say you got your hands on an armory and you got a couple of 240s, right? And you got 10 or 20 ammo cans for the 240. You're going to burn a lot of that stuff in a direct engagement, because your 240 is mainly there to fix an enemy into position so that your maneuver element can eliminate the position. It's actually what machine guns do. And also the biggest casualty producing system that you have. So we do this world a lot more fight smarter and not harder. So your next option you would be looking at is asymmetric warfare. Now, what is that? This is a fighting style that utilizes small, fast assault elements that unexpectedly strike much larger elements, inflicting damage through the use of unconventional tactics, such as ambushes, and we're inflicting losses and psychological damage to the adversary as the hits are violent, fast, and more important, unexpected. And then even better, your people are gone after it happens, right? This is one of those things where we can let them hit our blockade, right? And then, or if you had the mindset of there were people with convoys of supplies and you were trying to take them and they were the enemy, something like this, you would force them into an actual choke point. After they hit that choke point, you would strike hard and fast, damage stuff. They would be forced to leave a vehicle behind that had resources you could plunder, and then you would plunder that, take it back to your community and use it. It's a sketchy way to do things, but asymmetric warfare tactics are the baseline for what you would actually be able to do as a community trying to fight a much larger organized force. After that, it's going to be insurgent tactics. Now, insurgent tactics are kind of neat. Like if you remember the part of Red Dawn where they were basically in the city walking through a checkpoint and then they ran down into an alley and then all the people popped out of the ground and laid waste to the the Killikami from Ami dudes that were running into the thing, right? That is insurgency. It is essentially fighting from within. It shares a lot of the same tactics and kinetic responses as asymmetric warfare, because asymmetric warfare is unconventional warfare, but you're doing it as a part of the same community that you're actually in. It causes immense physical and psychological damage to an enemy, right? Because you're basically, I can tell you, right, like there isn't a single person from the GWAT era that will be like, dude, like insurgencies suck. Like they just do. They are also a fantastic means in which to gather intelligence and strike quickly with maximum effect and then melting back into the same population, right? See, this doesn't work in some areas, right? But in America, if we were forced in this situation and we had a occupying force, you'd find yourself looking for insurgent tactics as your best way of doing things within the city, because that allows you to get information, see how it works, and then strike really fast, really violently, wipe out 10, 20 people, or whatever it is, Minecraft characters, destroy a couple of things that were of vital importance, and then melt back into the population that is just like you. Wolverines! That's what that was. That's insurgent warfare. And then your last option is guerrilla warfare. Now, guerrilla warfare shares a lot with insurgent. It shares a lot with asymmetrical warfare, but guerrilla warfare is a little different. Not a ton. They're all effectively the same kind of thing. But the guerrilla warfare includes all of the aforementioned tactics. But we're going to add sabotage into this. We're not going to blend back in, but instead you're there to cause chaos. Rogers Rangers, the Kentucky Riflemen, like you go back in time, like this has existed a long time. And what we're actually, like this is what the Viet Cong was really good at, right? So mining roads, punji pits, booby traps, booby trapping buildings and equipment, or just downright sabotaging vehicles, right? So this is where you would see this thing in your head. Like if you knew that this convoy was coming into here and your aim was to take the whole convoy, if we were to say eliminate or, stop the lead vehicle and the rear vehicle, everyone in the middle is essentially trapped. And then you would hit that hard with asymmetric tactics and insurgent tactics. Fight, destroy as much as you can, do what you're going to do with your bad people, take the supplies, and then return to your area. Robin Hood is another great example. Like Robin Hood, the original children's storybook with guerrilla warfare tactics. One of the best tactics, though, is ambushing supply convoys, as I just mentioned, either by taking or booby trapping the supplies, because nobody said you had to take them to be effective. If you were to say sabotage this convoy, stop them from moving, leave that truck full of supplies, but then booby trap the truck itself so that when the force came to take it with more vehicles, they went in, they took it, and that supply then goes poof, right? You do so much damage that is not even just the physical stuff that you're doing. You are effectively leaving the area, and most likely the conflict is never going to be face to face, but instead an approach using parts of all three to cause chaos, instability, and fear. That is what guerrilla warfare is. You are not going out there to get into a head-to-head battle. You are out there with the specific intent to cause chaos and fear and instability, right? That's what snipers are for. Snipers take out leading and ranking individuals because once you cut the head off the snake, the rest of the snake isn't real sure what to do, right? If you have an opponent that is doing such and such every day and this guy goes to take a crap in the crapper and the crapper goes boom, right? People are going to be a lot less apt to go do that anymore because the last guy didn't do too well when he went there. Those are all guerrilla warfare, right? We are no longer fighting by the conventions of warfare. That is unconventional, that is asymmetric, that is insurgent, that is guerrilla, right? We are causing maximum chaos, maximum damage, instability within the ranks, and most importantly, psychological and physical fear. Because the enemy they're fighting, they have no idea who they are. They could be right next to them. They could be that person pushing a shopping cart down the road. That's what makes it effective. That's offensive measures you would looking at. Again, defensive measures that you would be forced to face. Guard post, LPOPs, kinetic defensive measures, creating barriers and stuff, punji pits. Like, here's the thing. If you hollowed out a road so that when they drove through this road, the road just caved in and you sank the first truck, well, now you've effectively stopped that road. And people are a lot less apt to continue forward because they don't know what the rest of that road looks like. So effectively, you have stopped their resupply efforts and probably scored yourself some cool supplies in the beginning. So guys, there you go. There's the fighting styles that we would look at post SHTF that would follow along with our condition set for when we would know the world is about to take a very, very dangerous turn. And yeah, the stuff that we had built for just such an occasion suddenly becomes a lot more relevant when that's the world that we live in. So guys, let me know what you thought of this one. What's your favorite part? Anyway, I am Uncle Freedom. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and until next time, I'll see you later.